Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at our final homework problem from chapter 11, and I modified this problem a little bit from what's in the class packet to break the information out into more of a trial balance format with debits and credits. I think that is more representative of the real world and what you'd actually see, and also just a little easier to analyze in terms of where things go. And I think it's helpful, so I appreciate having that more view. Hopefully you'll see some value in it as we kind of work through and figure everything out. So, okay, so let's get started here. So we've got our trial balance. We can see that the debits and credits balance and all of our accounts are here. In typical trial balance fashion, we have our assets here first, all the way down to about here. Then we have liabilities listed out till about here. And then we've got kind of equity related accounts all down to here. And then we've got our sales and revenues and revenues and expenses and income statement accounts all at the latter part. So to fill out our statement here, I basically have this template, and we're going to go through and just fill out. Actually, I'm going to add one more space because I know we have at least one extra spot here we need to fill in. What I would like to do, and I think one easy way, and just practice some Excel techniques here, is just to link to the accounts directly from the trial balance. So as far as the account titles go, let's go and fill those in first, and then I'm going to show you how to use a tool called a formula called a VLOOKUP to populate the balances after we get our amounts in here. Okay, so like I just let's link the names over so you can see. We start with sales. Remember, to get net sales, we need sales. Less sales returns and allowances, less sales discounts. That gets us net sales. And then we take out cost of goods sold. So let's see where that is there. And then that gets us gross profit. And then we have all of our operating expenses that we need to account for. And that will be things like bad debts expense, rent expense, research and development, amortization expense, depreciation expense. Remember, interest expense will go into our other gains and losses section, but we'll skip that one. But supplies expense, wage expense, and warranty expense, I think that captures everything there. So that's exactly all the spaces we need, so that's good. And now let's look at those other accounts. So as I mentioned, we have interest revenue, we have gain on sale. I think we're going to need an extra couple spaces here, so let's get those. So we have interest revenue, gain on sale, loss on sale, and then interest expense. I think that's everything there. And then that will get us to our net income. So one way we can kind of check some of the things that we're doing here is we can just sort of pull these out from the income, from the trial balance right here, just to be positive and negative, that just to check ourselves a little bit in there. So we should expect to see 380 as net income. And that was just me taking that over. So what I want to do, let's see if we've got that all in there correctly. And to do that, I want you to use a formula called the VLOOKUP. And so what this formula is, really handy tool. It's one of the key tools that I've used in Excel quite a bit in my career. So VLOOKUP. So you type that in, equals VLOOKUP, and you put a parentheses. And essentially what we're going to do then is select this A5 cell, so it's the sales here. It says sales. That's basically what we're doing. So equals VLOOKUP, and then click into the A5 cell, push a comma, and then we're going to highlight this whole row here, E to G. So it's basically pulling in. It's going to look at the first column here, and if it sees sales, it's going to pull in the value either in the debit or credit column. And so for sales, we're going to want the third column, so this is the first column, it'll say, oh, where's sales? It'll go, oh, here's sales. And then if you put 1, 2, 3, it'll pull in that third cell. So type 3 to look in the cell, and then you just type in false. That's just kind of a specific thing about the formula. And then we can see it automatically pulls in that third cell over, and that's what we want. So that helps us so we don't have to link in exactly and find the cell and click it and click enter. I mean, that works too, but this is a little easier in that you don't necessarily have to, well, I'll show you here. So once we have that formula input, so here's the formula again, we're saying A5. So look at this cell, and then look at these 3 cells. The first column is our kind of reference, and we go through, oh, here's sales, which is the same word it's connecting. And then it looks over twice and says, okay, or 3 times here, and says, what's in the third cell over? 2,500. And that's what we want. And then because we selected all the columns, we can just copy this formula and basically paste it in as we go. But one thing we'll want to change is for sales, returns, and allowances, and any expense accounts. Remember, those are all debits. So that'll be the second column, not the third, like we had for sales. So all we need to do is just change this 3 to a 2. But then we can just go through, copy, paste, anything that's an expense here. We can just paste that in. Again, now it's taking cost of goods sold and doing the same lookup function in the table. And then here's one thing, I copied that. You can highlight all these cells here, all the expenses, Control V to paste. Paste, and they just automatically populate there. And then down here, these are anything pulling from the debit column, so anything that's a loss or interest expense. And then this one's already pulling from the third column, so we can use that for the revenue in the gain. So you can see how easy it is to just populate those, and it actually is a cleaner way than linking to the direct cell, because if you modify anything over here, it can mess it up a little easier. So if you use the VLOOKUP, it's a little better data technique. So, okay, so now we have all of our amounts referenced in. We're going to sum everything up. So now we have net sales, and then we take net sales minus cost of goods sold to get gross profit. Then we sum up all the operating expenses. Oh, one thing we actually want to be careful of, though, in this part, we want to put a negative sign right in front of anything that is an expense or a reduction in net income. So then we sum all that up. And then we take our gross profit minus our operating expenses plus that there. Oh, I got 408. Why am I not matching up there? Okay, so something looks wonky. And then let's see why that didn't work. Let's take our difference. $28. What are we off by? So that should be $24.86. Oh, there's another one. Again, when you have them you have these amounts in the same columns, that's where you want to have negatives. Remember that. So again, you can use the VLOOKUP, just put a negative in front of it, and it'll pull that number in. It'll look to find sales, returns, and allowances. If you put the 2 in there, it goes, okay, this is 1. The 1 is the cell it looks for to match, and then 2 is the next one over. 3, you could do it on and on and on. So that's an easy way there. And then we're going to say on our retained earnings statement, there's no specific account for net income, so we'll just type that in and then link it above. But we can say dividends, so we can just copy that and then right-click, paste special. So you right-click and paste this little values. And then because it's a debit, again, we want the VLOOKUP that looks towards the second column, so we can use that again. And then we can do the same. Now or I should say the retained earnings is a credit balance, so it's going to be in the third column. So let's use sales, just like that one's in the third column. So the formula is looking at the third, has a 3 instead of a 2, is the only real difference there. Okay, so that's our retained okay, again, be careful with your negatives. Dividends is a negative there. So again, we've got 640. Okay, now let's go into our current assets and look and see what we need here. So let's link in cash, accounts receivable, allowance for doubtful accounts, inventory, prepaid rent, and supplies. And then let's go into our long-term investment section, and we've got land held for speculation and notes receivable. So that's great. For plant assets, we've got a building. We've got accumulated depreciation related to that building. We've got machinery, and we've got land. And then for our intangible assets, we've got goodwill. Oh, we're going to need some extra spots here, I can already tell. Let me add a few there. So we've got goodwill, patent, copyright, and finally trademark. Okay, that was enough there, enough spaces. Okay, so here's all of our things. And then remember, all of our assets have debit balances except for the contra asset accounts. So we can use the this formula that's pulling in the second column here, the debit column. And we can again just highlight all of the cells we want to paste this formula into and then paste it in. And then we could even just change the contra asset to the 3. So change that little 2 to a 3 so it pulls in the credit column. But remember to make that negative as well. That's important. And then we can just sum those. Again, we can copy our formula, come down here for the 2 accounts there, add those, okay. We do need our summations. Okay, we have to change our contra asset again to a 3 and make that negative, but you can see how quickly this works. So here, if you have this and you have all the names exactly the same as they are here, you can just highlight those cells and then paste that formula in, and it just instantly updates. It's a really handy tool. And then let's go ahead and add. So now we've got subtotals for everything. So we have current assets, long-term, plant assets, and intangibles. And then let's just add all these together. So it looks like our total assets comes out to 2006-18. So then let's keep going. And we may, we'll get to the end and see if we balance. Hopefully we do. But yeah, hopefully this is good practice for everyone to, practice a little bit of Excel skills here with the VLOOKUPs. So I'm going to follow the same formatting I had for the current asset section there and just indent all those a bit. Looks a little cleaner. Okay, let's start looking at our current liabilities. So equals, and then we'll come back up here and say accounts payable. We have wages payable, taxes payable, unearned revenue, and then estimated warranty liability. Okay, I think I have just enough spaces there. That's good. Long-term liabilities, we have our bond payable. We have our discount on the bond payable. And we have our note payable. Those are all long-term. Cool. Okay, and now I'm going to take the formula from our contract. No, I won't do that because it's got a negative sign. I'll just change to a 3 there. So now we've got a VLOOKUP that'll pull our credit balances in, and we can just paste those again, add a sum. Remember, for anything that's a contra, then we have to change that. So that's going to be 2 and make it negative. So we want to pull our discount. And then total liabilities, we just add the current and the long term. And I think that's everything. Yeah, and then we're going to come into linking in our shareholders' equity accounts. So we have common stock, paid in capital, preferred stock, retained earnings. And remember, this one's going to actually be retained. I'm going to link to here because this is actually ending retained earnings. And then finally, treasury stock. So we can't do a VLOOKUP on that ending retained earnings, but we can just link that above here to our ending balance. So we bring that down. And then we can just link all the rest of those. We paste all those in. Remember, our contra equity is going to be a debit, so we have to fix the formula and put a negative sign there. Add those up. And let's see if we missed anything. So then we can just add liabilities and equity, and then we do our check figure. Ooh, it looks good there. So assets minus liabilities and equity. Yep, since those are the same, we're looking good. If you take one minus the other, it's 0, and that's kind of how a check figures. A lot of times if it gets to 0, you know that you've balanced out, essentially. So yeah, it's just kind of a quick way to do some of that work, just to be matching my format style. I'm just going to indent these a little bit, just because I'm a Excel clean freak, if you want to think of it that way. But the VLOOKUP is super handy tool to learn, a formula to learn. So hopefully that at least made some sense, and it gave you a little insight into how you can use some of these Excel formulas to really easily populate certain tables and reports if you're trying to make those. Yeah, if you can do your VLOOKUPs, you can pull in a lot of information. And the only thing is that this name or this text has to exactly match the text that's in the first VLOOKUP column, because that's what it does. It says if this is exactly the same as this, for example, then it'll identify that, and you can pull in any number of cells to the right of it, essentially. One, this being 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. We only needed 2, 1, 2, 3, but you can really use this in a lot of different ways for Excel work, in a lot of applications. So, all right, well, hopefully that was helpful. And then reminder, yeah, we just modified this a bit from the packet problem to be an actual trial balance, which is more so what you're going to see. And I really think that helps when you're doing this kind of work, because the balances then are typically, they're all organized in a way that's more logical, not just randomly generated and jumbled up, because that really seems to slow people down. It slows me down when I try to do it, especially on an exam. So, all right, well, hopefully that was helpful. I appreciate you guys following along. And yeah, thanks for watching all the videos in the series, and I will see you in class or see you in the next videos. All right, bye, everybody. Have a good one.